So, how many people are like in the design field or like designers themselves here, would you say? Okay, so like about half, all right. And how many people are familiar with my work? Okay. How many people have seen like my TED Talk and things like that? All right, about half. Okay, so just delete. I thought I would today just, for those of you who don't know, I'm an information designer. I think I'm going to have to switch to this. It's a bit patchy, the sound. So I'm an information designer and data journalist. So I take data or information, all kinds of information, that's ideas, statistics, numbers, and turn them into images and designs that anyone can understand. And I did a book called Information is Beautiful, and I have a website called Information is Beautiful. And today I just wanted to take you through actually some of the processes I use to create these kinds of images and visualizations and designs all around, and lift the lid and see what you think. But I want to start just a little bit. My maxim is information is beautiful, and I want to just talk about myself a little bit and see if I can make my life beautiful. So I want to show you my visualized CV, which I actually dislike. It's probably my least favorite thing I've ever made. I hate the colors and it's quite blocky. But I just want to give a little snapshot of my background and how it folds into the work that I do. When I was a kid, I was really into programming. I used to program ZX Spectrums, all these kind of old computers. And I just was obsessively into hacking into video games. And that interest in video games led me into journalism, so I started writing about video games and reviewing them for kind of culty magazines. Then I started writing about technology for Wired and so on. And I followed that wave of interest of technology as web and tech culture became mainstream culture. And so I became a normal journalist, if you like, and I started writing for The Guardian and so on, doing news. And then at the same time I was running websites, some secret, some not so secret. And I love the web and the dynamism and the liveness of it, so that was a big influence for me. And then I got it, sort of ran out of money and had to step into the world of advertising to make some money. And I struggled with that, coming from a journalistic background, but what I discovered is that advertising is an amazing conceptual discipline, and advertising has long known the power of the visual image and a small bit of text, and that in a way is what information design, infographics, data visualization is all about, melding the visual and the conceptual. So I learned a lot from doing that, and then I finally got into design. And my design background is zero, essentially. I've never trained as a designer, never been to art school. So I've just learned, I like to learn just by doing and failing, essentially, and learning from the mistakes that I make. But I wanted to, one thing was curious for me when I started designing. I started mucking around doing designs on computers, and I discovered that I already knew how to do design. Not necessarily that I was immediately good at it, but more that I had an innate sense of space and color and typography, and I sort of knew the rules. I'd imbibed the rules somewhere along the line. And my theory was, I was kind of surprised, but my theory was that, I've been exposed to all this media over my career, and it sort of sunk in. Somehow I've absorbed it unconsciously. And my current pet theory is that this is happening to all of us, not just us in the room working in a visual design medium, but people in the wider world are becoming more design literate. They're understanding the rules of design. They're expecting information to be designed. Because the web, they're looking at the web every day. They're literally beaming this medium into their minds every day. And it's creating a kind of visual literacy, a design literacy. And it's changing our relationship to information. So design now, we expect, the way in which we relate to information depends on how it's designed. So you think about a really shoddy website and how much you distrust the information on that website. And you think about an amazingly glossy and beautifully designed website and think about how little you question the information on that website. So the two now play into each other, design and information. We're all visualizers, we're all design literate. This feels like a wave that's coming in. And I wonder if there isn't something cognitive about that. I wonder if that doesn't chime with something in the way our brains work, perhaps. Our eyes are exquisitely sensitive to variations of colour and pattern and tone. This is the language of the eye. And we're always hunting for patterns. I'm showing you the slide and you're looking for the resonances and the connections and the patterns. You're instinctively doing this. So if you combine this language of the eye with the language of the mind, which is about concepts and numbers and ideas, you're able to speak two languages simultaneously, a visual language and a conceptual language. And that's what infographics and information design, that's the potential of it. You can speak two languages simultaneously, each enhancing the other. Let me show you what I mean. I did this graphic, which you may have seen. I was intrigued by how much legal action there is in the telecoms industry. So this is a visualization of the current state, and basically it's a complete fuckfest. Everyone's just suing everyone else. But there are layers to this image, and I want to point them out to you. So let me just tell you something about it first. The blocks here indicate the revenue of each company, and red blocks indicate increasing revenue year on year, and black box are, black box are companies that are increasing in revenue, red blocks are companies that are decreasing in revenue. So there's three things here, and in the speech bubbles are the reasons why each company is suing the other. So I can strip those out, so take that conceptual layer off, and we're left with a more visual schematic. And we can take out the conceptual labels of the companies. Now we're down to the kind of base level, the machine code, if you like, the language of the eye level. And here your eye is exquisitely positioned to answer two questions. Is there a relationship between decreasing revenue and increasing litigiousness? Is there a relationship between the size of a company and increasing litigiousness? And that conclusion or that question is not easily answered if you saw this data on a spreadsheet. You almost have to visualize it to be able to see whether that's the case or not. And you've got three layers. You've got your visual layer and your conceptual layers simultaneously. So that's kind of like a bit of an underlying principle in what guides the work. And it makes me feel, I'm going to walk over here for some reason, it makes me feel that increasingly that this form is like a new kind of camera. And a camera metaphor is really, really useful when you're describing and relating this approach to people. So for instance, you can zoom right out, like to take a satellite photo of a subject, like really plan view. It's something I did for The Guardian. I was curious, you remember when the BNP were having this resurgence of interest a couple of years ago, and these are the areas where there was high membership of BNP. And then I thought, well, how does that correspond to areas of large non-white populations? What's the relationship? And again, it's not something you can see very easily in a spreadsheet, but if you visualize it just using these simple colors and then overlay them, you can start to see patterns you wouldn't necessarily see before. And this isn't hard science, but it's just a correlation, but it's the beginning of an investigation. You see some predictable overlaps in Northwest Yorkshire where there's been racial tension, but then some unexpected ones, Eastbourne and Swindon. You might think, what's going on there? It's kind of unexpected. But also you see the broader pattern. You see areas of high BNP membership around areas of ethnic populations. Now what is that? Is that white flight? Is that people on the outside looking in and being scared? So the broader pattern, we've zoomed right out, and we can see a different kind of pattern. Traditional maps, I did this again for The Guardian, some data I came across about fish stocks, simple visualization. This is the biomass of popular eating fish, cod and Atlantic salmon and so on, in the 1900s. Orange here is the strongest intensity, and this is the state in the year 2000. And a lot of the common fisheries policies in the EU are orientated to restoring fish stocks back to the state they were 10 years ago. That's the kind of waterline, if you like. But as you can see, we're already pretty screwed then. So again, we're up high. And combining the data, so you can condense some data. Yeah, cokeheads. So these are the top users of drugs, countries, top users country users of drugs. Just a small data set, top 8. Again, we'll just use a simple map. So that's for Coke. You're going to see a lot of Australia in this. Cannabis. Australia again. Any Australians in? It's too early for you. Pillheads. Australia. Actually, this is a battle between Australia and Spain, actually. This is per capita, so this is taking into account population size. Speed freaks. Smackheads, that's very depressing. Smokers, interesting correlation. And of course, the drunks. So simple up visualization, a little bit of data, tells a little story, gives you a little, opens your mind a little bit to that realm. So you can go up high, but you can crash zoom also into a small statistic, a tiny little number that might reveal something or tell a different kind of story. This is an image I did about Twitter. This is quite a while ago, so this data is 8 or 9 months old, so it may not be as accurate. But again, it's like a little snapshot of the difference between your perception of the world and how it might actually be in terms of data. A lot of people on Twitter are not really doing that much. I did another thing, take another number. It's a lot of drug. You can see a lot of drug images in this set, I'm afraid. I don't know why. I was curious about legalized drugs. You know, if we legalize drugs, how much revenue would that generate? Taking into account, you know, increased hospitalization and increased addicts and the cost of that to the economy. So here you have, and it actually would raise $5 billion a year, which coincidentally is the exact shortfall in university funding in 2012 when the new tuition fees come in. So, I don't know, extreme times, you need extreme measures, right? That would be an elegant solution. Cut the funding from students and then legalize drugs. Brilliant. So, just zooming in and giving one number, I saw this, do you know Clay Shirky? He's an American writer who's this idea about cognitive surplus, the idea of minds out on the internet just waiting to be harnessed under great creative projects. So he had this standout statistic, which was how much American adults spend watching TV a year, 200 billion man-hours. And you can contrast that with the 100 million hours it took to create Wikipedia. And then to get that sense of like this untapped potential, this untapped creative potential. And yeah, so it's just a little number that just tells a little story. What was curious about this image is I generally do sketches before I digitize something, if you like. And this was my sketch. Now, can you see? In my mind, that was the size of 100 million compared to 200 million, 2 billion. The mind can't do scale very well, can't do numbers, can't visualize the scale of numbers very well. And I think this is I feel this is something that's exploited politically. Because often you'll hear the figure 100 million, 100 billion, and it has a resonance in our minds. We think, yeah, that's a lot. But actually, is it? As recently, Obama used the same technique. 3,500 billion budget. This is the budget, federal budget, to run America, simply to run the government. And at the same time, they announced, well, we'll cut 100 million. Like, yeah, 100 million, yeah, that's good. So here we go, 3,500 billion, that's the US federal budget. There's 100 million. If you can't see it, it's here. It's this pixel. So whenever you're reading the paper or you're in the news and you hear the term 100 million, go into alert mode, you know, check what's being done, because it might be a little bit of hand-waving. And there was a lot of discussion about this, and they fought on it over the Senate, and they agreed a 33 billion cut to the federal budget, which looks like this. So just so you can see. So, cameras up, cameras down, cameras moving around. I created like a load of infographics, and I've just become a little bit obsessed with this process. And I think it's an amazing potential, and it's some conceptual thing, and it relates to the way we see the world. And I thought I might share with you, if you're interested, how I, the process I go through to create some of these images. Is that, yeah? Cool. Let's do that. So like I said before, I do a lot of sketching. It's cool. Sketching is good because it's loose and free, and you can share it with other people without them getting too judgmental about it. If you share digitizations or digital mock-ups with people, they bring their digital expectations to the image, and often they judge them on those terms. This was the first image I created for my book. It's about creationism and evolutionary theory. And I just sketched it out because I just didn't understand what was going on, really. And then that came out like this. So I designed it a bit better and summarized all the copy. This was about conspiracy, and this started as a kind of mind map. Often a mind map is not a bad way. It's like the first sketch you might do to get everything on the table and to see the connections. So I was curious about the structure of conspiracies. Is there a hidden pattern to the way they're organized? So I did a little mind map, and then I visualized it like this, because triangles are more conspiratorial. And so you see the Illuminati rule. Sometimes it's more illustrative. So this was my attempt to understand the carbon cycle, which is a really complex natural cycle. It's essential to understand, really, if you want to know about our contribution to the carbon in the atmosphere. And that came out quite illustrative in the end, because that's the only way I can explain it. But I'm trying to explain how man-made input results in this, and it relates to this graph the scary graph that you keep seeing that Al Gore shows. So I wanted to show how it all linked up, or understand. I did quite a famous image that I've done is a $1 billion-ogram. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a visualization of billions. Because I was frustrated with, with the thing of not being able to really understand what a number is, and not being able to visualize it. So I scraped a load of numbers from different newspaper reports and scaled the boxes here, and then the colors here represent the motivation. So green is like making money, pink is like spending money on good causes, and so on. So you get like this is called a tree map, and you get a nice pattern and image. This was a real ask to create. I do all these images by hand, so it does take quite a while. And initially I just started collating a huge spreadsheet of billions, literally just as many as I could find that I thought were interesting. And in those days, when I did this image back in 2008 or 2009, I hadn't yet had any skills in scraping, so I had to do manual searches. So I literally went to Google and I searched for 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion, right up to, well, you don't want to know. And I did the first 5 pages, and then I pulled out anything that I thought was interesting. So by the end I had maybe 400 billions that I thought were interesting. Then I scaled all the boxes just as squares using square root, if you're interested. And then I started sort of assembling them, color coding them, used a grid, started assembling, trying to make them into an interesting pattern. I had some sort of rogue numbers that I wasn't quite sure what to put. And then it starts to assemble, and it's just really just painstakingly putting them in so that they follow an interesting pattern and that they all fit together. And they tell a kind of story, so you get that close and then you're finished. And then there is ultimately I'm trying to create a story, and what I'm trying to do is put subjects alongside each other that are contrasting. So you've got like Walmart, and you've got OPEC, and you've got tobacco, and you've got, so I'm trying to create a bit of variety so it reads a bit like an article. You could read it from top to bottom and you'd be interested. But the coolest thing is when you visualize information like this and you be able to see the links visually, you start to see patterns between, or relationships between numbers that you would otherwise be separated across multiple news reports. You'd never see them together. So you'd never essentially get the connection. So I was intrigued by this. So, because I like this one. Oh, no, I'll show you this. So I made a little video of those connections, and I'm going to attempt to put the microphone near the computer, so let's hope this works. Yeah. So if you spend time creating data and curating it, it becomes an asset. It becomes like something you can then build on and ripple into other media. It becomes valuable. I did a similar approach with the UK budget, which is slightly less interesting because it's more local and UK based. But I wanted to understand this figure, this budget deficit that we're wrestling with, and you see it here, and you see that it's bigger than what we earn from income tax every year. The government earns from income tax every year, so you can see it's like one hell of an overdraft. You can see why everyone's struggling, but still I'm within the realms of billions here. And I thought, is there a way I can visualize this that I can relate to more cleanly, less abstractedly? And so I thought of another metric. I took the same figures and I translated them into the cost for an average taxpayer every day. So that's how much, as an average taxpayer, you pay towards these amounts. So my thinking was, you probably don't know what you spend every year, and you probably don't know what you spend every month, but you definitely know what you spend every day. So here you can see we spend £9, you contribute £9 a day to the NHS, 3p a day to museums, and £2.93 to Scotland. Which, I don't know, you may think is good value. I was recently there, and of course it is. But again, whenever there's an attempt to make the data create a relationship between a human and the information. So that's one process. Is this mic working? Yeah, we good? It's a bit patchy. All right, I'll shout a bit louder. Sometimes I work with other designers, which is a really amazing process for me because I'm a complete control freak, so it's just really a whole exercise of me letting go. I created an image, I don't know if you've seen this one, this is a visualization of political spectrum, which I created with a London-based designer called Stephanie Pasavek. And here it's like, again, an attempt for me to understand the political spectrum and the ideas within it and how they percolate down from government into society and culture, into the family, into individuals and their beliefs and background again. And it's really a concept map. It's a visualization of stuff that's essentially invisible, the concepts and ideas that we might use to frame our worldview. I love this image, and again, this started out as a spreadsheet where I just researched the various aspects of the spectrum. And then I did a sketch for Stephanie, which looked a bit like this. And then she came back with a massive PDF. And you can see there's too much information in it. And that's a really key thing. It's like, you're really out in design to optimize, to remove as much as possible and keep the function and quality of the idea. So we thought there's too much going on, so we boiled it down a bit. This was my feedback to her. I just got a Wacom pad, so I was really excited about being able to draw curves. So I wanted the idea of a cyclical flow, and then it came back with this, and then that was the wrong size, and we tightened up, and then we had the final result. The final result was really, I love this image. I think it's a really exciting way of looking at this image, and it's not so threatening as reading about politics, so it opens the mind a little bit. And that took just 3 drafts, so that was we did 3 drafts of that, and we got it nailed, and that was amazing, because mostly it takes a lot of time to do these images. I did this one about time travel in TV and film. I was just curious, Star Trek, Back to the Future, all those time journeys, what do they look like if you visualize them all on one timeline? What would it be like? So on the top you've got journeys forward in time, and on the bottom you've got journeys back in time. So I did a little sketch, and I was just really geekily excited about this. So I did a digital schematic to start off with, and you can see there's a problem emerging already, is that there's a huge concentration of arrivals and departures around the 19th and 20th century, inevitably biased our culture and our wardrobe departments. So thought, okay, well, maybe we can telescope the line, so the idea of pulling it tight, so we see the 19th and 20th century in more detail, and then the other bits are dangling over the end. I look at this and thinking, yeah, okay, that's kind of good, it's kind of not working, maybe go back to a more schematic, no, that's not working. Maybe jumps, because things are jumping, so let's use curves, and it's just like, it's all right, but it's not working in some way. So yeah, I think at this point the designer left the project, and I took over. And I was thinking, go back to so I was stuck, but I thought, what can I do here? I need to go back to the concept. What's the concept? The concept is time travel. What images does time travel bring up for you? Well, it's all about tunnels, isn't it? And like chaotic curves and being flung violently through time. So it's got to be a curve. Instead of having a fixed linear timeline, let's do a curve. So there was a sketch. We started drawing curves. Everyone use Illustrator and the curve tool in Illustrator. You'll understand my pain of going through this. So we started drawing it black background because it's sci-fi. And then finally we got a final image, which is kind of embodies, I feel, the chaos of time travel, and it looks kind of elegant and timeliney. And again, we've stretched the timeline to 19th, 20th century. But the coolest thing of all is that when you visualize this data, you start to see time journeys where time travelers would overlap. In time travelers from different plots. Time travelers from different plots would overlap. So here we've got the Star Trek crew and Marty McFly battling the Terminator around about 1984. You know, in some kind of meta movie, maybe directed by Charlie Kaufman, that would be happening. So again, it's just little things you don't see, and these things have never been glommed together in a visualization before. So it's fun. But that was 39 drafts in total. Yeah. Sometimes you're trying to find the perfect expression. So sometimes it's like sculpting, you know, you're whittling away, trying to find what the ideal expression is. And usually it starts with an idea. Pretty much always it starts with an idea. So my book that I did started as just a bunch of ideas. It was originally called the Information Atlas. And the idea was it's charts and maps for navigating the information age. And that was the idea, because we were swamped in information. We need some new kinds of maps to help orientate and guide us. And I did a presentation for the publishers, and I just stuck together and visualized it as a book. And then I got the book commissioned, and I literally, the first 2 or 3 months, I simply sat down and conceptualized ideas. I had a spreadsheet. I just wrote them all down. I came up with like 400 ideas, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, just pummeling it before I did any design. That's often the case, because if you delve into the data or you delve into design too early, you're just kind of lost swimming around. You need a concept or an idea or a story to guide you. How am I doing for time, please?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Another 5-10 minutes.
Another 5-10 minutes, cool. All right. So would it be helpful for you to have some idea where I get my ideas from, or how to generate ideas? Is that useful? Yeah? Okay. So, I mean, I get ideas from the usual stuff, you know, inspiration, curiosity, wonder, passion, or talking to people. That's, you know, yeah, you get a lot of ideas from that. But actually, I like to use another side of life, if you like, to get ideas. Certain kind of feelings that I think are really useful, especially when you're doing information design, particularly. And these are the feelings: boredom, ignorance, bewilderment, and frustration. When you're feeling these feelings, when you're reading something or you're looking at a diagram or a visualization, that's a sign that that visualization or that piece is not working. If you're having that kind of response, there's something wrong with it. So you can go, oh, this is crap, and turn away. Or you can say, well, there's a solution needed here. I can improve this, or I can do it better, or I can solve this problem, or I can relieve this feeling. You know, how can I make this interesting if it's boring? How can I, you know, I don't understand this. How can I find it out? How can I understand this? Or how can I make this work better? That was for the billions. I was like frustrated because billions are reported as if they're self-evident facts, and I don't understand them, and that frustrates me. So it was the spark to make me find a way so I can understand them. You know, when your design is about providing solutions, elegant solutions to problems, and information design is about providing solutions to information problems. So these are signs that information problems are looming. I'll just give you an example. Boredom. The Guardian gave me a data set. Oh, we've got this amazing data set about military budgets. I was like, oh. And I looked at it and I was like, oh. This is a list of military budgets, so boring. And I was like, okay, let me see if I can do something with this. So I started with this. Who has the biggest military budget in the world? If you know this, don't say. Anybody? China is quite big, but yeah, USA. As the US. Massive, 607 billion, you saw it in the video. And there are all the other top military budgets. So big that it contains all the others inside it. There's some other numbers for context. So it's kind of interesting, but predictable. You ask that question, you get an answer, right? All right, so then it's like, well, is that true? Is it true that America has the biggest military budget? Because America is actually an incredibly wealthy country. Look how wealthy it is. This is the 4 biggest industrialized economies, and it can contain it inside themselves. These are the GDPs of the states. So it's so wealthy, its military budget is bound to be disproportionately large, right? Stupidly large. So if you look at the absolute figure, you think, oh yeah, Americans just spend all their money in military, but no, they're so rich they can afford to spend that much. So to be fair, you really need to normalize that data. You have to bring in another data set and say, well, what percentage of an income do the country spend on the military budget? So you add that percentage of GDP, and then it changes. The USA actually drops down, and these other countries that were hidden in the absolute figures spring into view. And again, if you're a journalist or you're curious, you might think, well, why is Saudi Arabia spending so much on its military budget? Why is Tajikistan and so on? So it might lead to more curiosity, more investigation. So combining 2 data sets starts to become interesting. And I thought, well, what about the armies? Who has the biggest army? China, right. 2.1 million, the scary Chinese army, this formidable force. But of course, again, China has an enormous population, right? So you need to do it as a percentage of the population to get a clearer, truer image. And if you do that, I think I'll point this way, it works. That's the image. China actually drops to 124th in the world. It actually has a tiny army for its size. And again, these other countries spring into view, and they were hidden by using absolute rather than relative figures. So that became the story. So from a very boring data set, I followed my own boredom and created a story out of it, trying to make this data more interesting and more relevant. And it was on the data blog, and it was the biggest Guardian story of that month in April when it was released. It had like 3,500 digs and various other things, and it all just came from that, a list of numbers that I just bored the hell out of me, So that's one way of being inspired. Again, in a similar vein, there's so many diagrams and images and out there already that are shit, essentially. They're really bad, but there's so much wisdom or information locked in them. It's almost like it becomes a challenge. You find something like this. This was a blood test result. This is a standard blood test result from a US hospital. And it's like, how can I make this look good and unlock its information, because I don't understand it. So this was a challenge that Wired magazine did, and this is the visualization I did, putting the numbers into context, opening it up graphically, doing a little bit of research, offering some advice and context. So just a simple sort of tweak, really. Again, and you've got a new image. So if you're looking for inspiration, look around the web, find something that's crap, and make it better. And then recontribute it back to the community. Why not? And then curiosity is a really good thing for me. I'm always sort of hungry for ideas. I don't know if you've seen this one, but I was wondering if this was the case. The horoscopes all say the same thing. I don't know. So I scraped 22,000 of them from Yahoo's horoscope and did a word frequency analysis, and created a little sort of universal horoscope out of the most common words. And the red words here are the words that are unique to each star sign. And again, using the language of the eye, you can pretty much immediately perceive and answer the question, are horoscopes all saying the same thing? Yeah. And if you're curious, I had to get a hacker to do this, to do the scraping. And we wrote a Python script, if you're into that, that's hit Yahoo's servers over and over again and scrape these horoscopes off. But unfortunately, we triggered Yahoo's anti-hacking countermeasures, and we were banned from Yahoo for 24 hours. So we had to find a frequency of scraping that wouldn't trigger those measures, and it's 1/10 of a second. So, if you want to do any scraping, so So we glommed them all into a spreadsheet and then we did the viz. And the coolest thing is, and it's kind of just fun, if you've got all the most frequently used words in all the horoscopes, you can create one prediction that applies to all signs for every day of the year, right? And here it is. Whatever the situation or secret moment, enjoy everything a lot. Family and friends matter, keep making love. The world is life, fun and energy, maybe hard or easy. Change your mind and a better mood comes along. You can't argue with that. Now, that was a sort of frivolous thing. It was just a side project. I just wanted to play. But I learned, in the process of doing that, I learned how to scrape. I learned how to speak in a microphone. I learned how to do word frequency analysis. I got a great relationship with a hacker, and so on. So these kind of seemingly frivolous or just fun side projects, playing with data, playing with approaches, actually equips you with skills and tools and ideas to then apply to whatever you're working on in a broader way. Now I could end here. Do you want me to end here?
Well, the mic's kind of giving up.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? So I'll end on this. Change your mind and a better mood comes along. Yes, thank you.
So what do you feel the future direction is for information design from where it is now?
It just seems really exciting from where it is now. I mean, there has been a massive glut of it, and I think that's the main problem. There's a lot of infographics around, there's a lot of people doing it, and some of the work is quite sort of and it's creating a bit of noise. But it is amazingly powerful, and you do connect to it quite strongly, and it feels like in a fast-moving world, something that's distilled and condensed and quick to absorb is just incredibly valuable, especially if it's truthful and you know, it's coming from a good source and you can trust it. So if you can trust, you can kind of let go and absorb information really quickly. And I think the potential for like motion infographics and interactive is just vast. I mean, that's really untapped at this stage, I think.
So is the general public becoming more or less manipulable, or is it just, or are we just the same?
I have no reference point for that. I've never been able to manipulate them, so I'm not sure whether.
Quite the opposite. I believe that your work is enlightenment. Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's fine. No, it is manipulative in a way as well, because like I said, I am trying to convey a message, and my biases do creep in, and I think. You know, you can lie with statistics, but you can really lie with visualized statistics because they have that authority and impact that design brings, as well as the manipulation of the numbers. And that's why I always try and every single image I tie to a Google Doc, and you can see the data in the spreadsheet. And I think this approach has to be twinned with transparency, or else it can be a tool for manipulation and power. And you know, I ask everyone to check my numbers and go and see where all this has come from.
Is there going to be a push over the next couple of years for designers to stay true to, I guess, kind of a code of ethics or a moral code, whereas some are going to kind of push to the side where they're working more in a propagandist way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's already happening. I guess what keeps it in check are the internet police, in a way, the people that